Hi everybody. Today we're going to tie a fun little fly. This is what we would classify as an oldie but a goodie. This fly is called the Jassid. It's a great fly. It's one of those flies that I tend to come back to every now and then. It kind of falls out of my fly box. I kind of forget about it for a little bit. Then I open my box one day and see it there and just kind of gravitate back towards it. It's an excellent summer fly. It's meant to fool some wary fish. What kind of jumps out is the fly. It always gets brought up whenever I'm reading a Vincent Marinero book, In the Ring of the Rise. Hopefully you've read this book before. It's a great classic book, written by one of the greats in our sport. Let me zoom out so you can take a peek at this. Here's one of the introductory pages. In the Ring of the Rise by Vincent Marinero. A picture of him with a wonderful fish. And he refers to some tactics and some flies in this book that are still in use today. And that's what kind of made that an incredible book and makes this an incredible fly. This Jassid's going to be tied with a number of materials. I'm just going to use a gray thread, and it's going to match the body type. And the body that I'm using is mole. I'll tell you a little bit more about this as we go, but it's a wonderful type of dubbing material. And I'm going to touch dub with this today. In order to touch dub, I'm going to use some dubbing wax. This is the Orvis brand. Over top of the body, we're going to be tying a grizzly hackle. The grizzly hackle, in this case, is going to come out of New York. It's going to be from one of my favorite hackle suppliers, Collins Hackle. Let's see if I can give you a close-up of his name here. It's Collins Hackle, 436 Kinner Hill, Pine City, New York. He has some wonderful hackle. I just got some Cree off of him a few weeks ago. We're going to use a grizzly in this case. And then finally, over the top, and if you take a look at this fly that's in my vise right now, I'm not sure how well the coloration's showing up on this video. It's that top part is an exotic material called jungle cock. Here's an example of a jungle cock, a cape. It's a neat material. These feathers tend to be used a lot for the sides of streamers because they resemble a fish's eye or a bait fish's eye whenever it's tied in from the side. The material has kind of fallen out of favor in recent years. It could be very difficult to get your hands on. There's a high fee for it if it's imported. You can buy some local ones. In fact, I did buy this one locally. The price can range anywhere between $30 and $200. So it tends to get a little pricey. There is a synthetic that's out there. If you do decide to purchase the natural, you want to try to figure out what size eyes you're going to be looking for. So you want to concentrate on the size of the eyes and if they're cracked or not. If you take a look at the right side of this, there's a couple lines that are showing between these eyes. So there are some cracked ones in here. On the left, there's definitely a few more that have some crackings in them. I'm going to be using a smaller one for this Jassid, which is going to come around this level. And I do use some of the next tier for some smaller streamers. So this is a kind of neat material to have, something that you don't use every day, but great to be able to pull out of your collection every now and then and tie some flies. The hook that I'm going to be tying this with today is a size 20 big eye. This is Orvis. If you've watched any of my videos in the past, I really prefer these big eye dry fly hooks. It's great to put a small tippet through. Let me get this fly out of here. Get the new hook in. This is a size 20. I like to fish this pattern anywhere between a size 18 to a size 26, depending on the hook style. Let me zoom in just a hair so you can see exactly what I'm doing as I take you through these steps. Okay, I'm going to start with that thread. Again, I'm going to be using that gray thread. You want to keep this body very, very sparse. This is one of those flies that we kind of like to say less is more. I tend to see that a lot in the majority of flies being tied today, but this is really one that's true of that. Let me get my mole out of here. Directly below my mole, I had the piece of a grizzly. I'd already pulled this out. It's a fine grizzly saddle. I really prefer saddles if I can find them in the small sizes. This is going to be a little less than ideal because it tapers from large to small. So this is not what you would call an absolutely perfect grizzly saddle that is tapered for a size 20 the whole way through, or a size 22 or a size 18 the whole way through. But for the purposes of this fly, it will work. Let me strip some of the fibers near the base. And tie this in near the rear of the hook. I'm just going to put, again, just a few wraps just to keep it to a bare minimum. After I have those few wraps in, I have that locked in, I'm going to apply some of my wax. I'm just going to go a little bit Just coat a little bit on both sides of that thread. I don't want to get too much wax in there though. Again, I don't want to build up the body of this fly. We're going to use the mole. We're going to use a method called touch dubbing. Let me kind of zoom out a little bit so you can see exactly what I'm doing with this mole. I'm going to take my mole skin. I'm just going to pull and get a clump of this mole fur in my hand. This is wonderful material. It has this great sheen to it. I'm going to lift up my thread, and like the method says, we're just going to call touch dub it. We're just going to apply the mole to a couple spots on the thread, and it will stick immediately to that wax that we put on there. Now, when you use this touch dubbing method, you can leave it almost loose and wrap your thread on. It creates a really a crazy body. You can almost see through the body to the core of the fly. There's some neat methods. There's a lot of fly tyers that are getting very innovative with this method, even though it is a really old method, actually. In this case, I am going to just do a brief little spin of this material. I do want to lock it in place in a bit. I also want to create more of that cigar-style body. This fly is in almost the Griffith's gnat style, which the Griffith's gnat is tied with the body of peacock. So it's okay if this material is kind of sticking up a little bit. You want it to look buggy. I mean, we want flies to catch fish, and it seems like buggy flies really tend to catch fish. Okay, I have enough dubbing to get me to about a little less than 1.5 hook eyes from the front. That's going to be fine. That's actually pretty much right where I wanted. If I had a little bit more on there, it wouldn't be a bad thing, but in this case, it'll be all right. I'll just wrap a couple more wraps up with just my thread, and that'll be okay to hide that hook a little bit. I'm going to get this hackle, palmer it up a little bit. Just going to make a few turns. Let's go 1, 2, 3, and I'll make one more wrap. That's it. So I'll make the fourth, hold it up. If you notice, I'm going to kind of zigzag my thread as I'm coming around, which will help to prevent to lock any of the fibers. I have that locked in place now. I always like, whenever I tie in a hackle, I always like to zigzag my thread back through it to lock it completely in place. In this case, I don't want to mess up the body too much, so I'm going to zigzag just a little bit back and then to the front again. I'm not going to go the whole way to the back. With Griffith's gnats, I will take it the whole way to the back, but in this case, I really like the profile of this body. You can see some of that mole. I'm not sure if the camera's showing it, but some of the mole is kind of sticking out and splaying in the middle of that body. It really gives it a nice appearance. Let me zoom back in for you. All right, at this point, I have my body, my mole body dubbed in. I have my grizzly hackle. I only have a couple locks of thread keeping it in place. I'm going to trim my grizzly hackle from the front towards the back. And it's okay if I kind of mess up in my clipping. What I'm actually going to do is clip the top part and clip a little strip of that grizzly out, because that's where the jungle cock's going to rest. So I'm just going to take my scissors back. I'm going to rest my thumb on my vise, and I'm going to place them on my, my left pointer finger as kind of a base. Extend back and make a nice clip through. So I've kind of allowed an area for my, my grizzly to be tied in. Now I'm going to just see if there's any more outlying pieces of grizzly. I can see a couple fibers that are kind of messing around right now, and that's okay. I'm going to bring my wraps back just a hair. Those fibers near the front, they're probably not going to do any damage, but I am just going to get them out of there for the sake of not having them interfere with anything. So I'm going to just pull those out quickly. Okay, I got the majority of them. There's a couple left. They're not going to bother me too much. Okay, go to this jungle cock. Let me zoom out again for you to see how I'm going to select this. I want to find one where this eye is going to sit right, just right over the body. So I want to find a decent size eye. This one right in the middle is going to work. So I'm going to be careful not to mess around with any of the other eyes while I'm removing this one. I'm just going to pull it loose. Give you a chance to look a little closer at this beautiful feather. You can see the eye. I'll zoom in for you. You can see this eye has a really wonderful coloration to it. On the back, the reverse is pretty neat because it has a really strong white spot. And that will show up at times whenever this is sitting on top. If you ever tie it over a little bit, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It will really create that strong white profile, which might appear dark to the fish from the bottom. Let me tie this in. I can't just leave it go because we have a lot of extra fibers on this. So I'm gonna hold that eye of this fiber, strip away a lot of these fibers because there's a lot of extras on here. Just gonna match it up and keep stripping away until I have just the right amount. I'm almost gonna take all of these black fibers off from the sides, so it's almost just the eye sitting on. After I have the majority of them removed, I have a lot of those fibers out of there. I don't even need to trim it. I'm just going to tie it in with all that stuff. I'm going to set it flat on top. Just hold it in spot with my thumb. Put in a few wraps. Put in about 6 wraps. I might go back over. I'm going to lift up. Get one in front. Get a little half hitch going. I have my half hitch. Now everything's locked in place. This jungle cock, the extension of that feather sticking up, so I'm just going to trim the stem. I still see some of those little grizzly fibers from earlier, and I do want to get those guys out of there. I don't want them near the front of this hook at all. They're not coming out as easy as I thought, so I'm going to just trim those to get them out of there. I want to make sure the head of this fly is very clean, so it has no problems interfering with my tippet. Now I have it looking fine. I'm going to finish this fly. I have my thread locked in place. Let me trim it away and take a quick peek at this from the top. And I'll see if I can zoom in just a little bit more for you. I'm not sure if my focus will get in that fine. From the top of this fly, you can see we have that jungle cock fiber, that nice dot. From the sides, you can just begin to see the body. Looks like some of those fibers from that grizzly hackle are sticking out the back, which could give it that gnat type look. And from the bottom, everything's looking okay. I'll see if I can pull it out so the camera can see this as I drop it. From the bottom, that white underpart body of the jungle cock is really sticking out. So if I'm holding this fly up and imagining it on the water, it's really giving a couple different profiles for that fish. So this came out just the way I wanted it to. I'm looking forward to fishing this. This will be a great summer fly, July fly, to use as almost a terrestrial. It could be used as a beetle in a sense, as a miniature cricket, as an ant. This Jassid has many, many possibilities. It's definitely a very old fly, as I mentioned, but it will be one of those oldies but goodies tied with some pretty neat materials. Hope you enjoyed watching me tie this fly, and I hope you are able to go out, get some of these materials, and try a couple of them on your own. If you do, good luck, and make sure you keep that fly line tight, and I'm sure you'll get a trout or two on them.